Rick Albin is going to tell us what the real story is. I know there's a groundbreaking, but what's the real purpose of the president coming now? How many times?
May, June, and now in July. Each time the president's trip is lined up with one of his policy objectives. But you can bet there's a lot broader reason for this president showing up in Michigan 3 times inside of 3 months. And it's likely broader than just education or, like this upcoming trip, alternative energy. There's a presidential election in 2.5 years, and it is almost certain that Michigan is going to be pivotal in that race. Looking at polling numbers right now, the road to the White House, of course, does run through Michigan, but that could be a bumpy road for the president. If you take a look at some numbers from our Epic MRA poll that was just last month, it shows Republican candidates for governor leading Democratic candidates by an average of more than 10%. If you're running for president and you want to win Michigan, you'd like to have a governor in that state from your own party. Right now, that looks less likely than it did maybe even 2 or 3 years ago. So that's just one. That whole winning Michigan thing is going to be important, but let's take a look at some of those numbers from that same poll. This is from last month. Our Epic MRA poll says that your friends and neighbors in the state approve of the president's job rating by 47%. They disapprove by 52%. And by the way, speaking of those numbers, nationally, we've got some numbers that have this same type of reflection. Gallup, for example, shows a 45% approval and a 48% disapproval. Rasmussen paints an even more dismal picture for the president, with approval at 46%, disapproval at 53%. Those are not the kind of numbers you want going into re-election cycle, so it makes sense that this president would use one of his most powerful political tools to try to turn all of this around. That is his ability to connect with people one-on-one and in large crowds, try to get them enthused about an election that, as we say, is still more than 2.5 years away. Now, just before you start sending me emails saying no, Michigan won't be important, I want you to consider a couple of things. Yes, in the cycle just 2 years ago, both candidates pulled out early. But for Democrats running for president, winning Michigan remains key. In fact, since 1976, only one Democrat has gone to the White House without winning Michigan, and that was Jimmy Carter. He was running against Gerald Ford, so he didn't have much of a chance to win Michigan. Before that, you got to go back to 1948. So Michigan, and what will likely be 17 rather than 18 electoral votes, because we'll likely lose one because of the census that is just now being completed, those 17 electoral votes will still be pivotal for a Democrat, and we expect to see the president here more rather than less.